In every corner of America, there are stories of resilience, innovation, and the unwavering spirit of community. Stories of people and places transformed by the power of connection, collaboration, and a shared vision for a better future. Welcome to The Community Effect, the podcast where we explore the intersection of community development, affordable housing, and the impact it has on us all.
Welcome to The Community Effect, the podcast where we share stories of hope, transformation, and the power of place. I'm your host, Marietta Rodriguez. Now that we know that strategic partnerships have the potential to create lasting change in communities, today's guest will share a story of transformation from Pagedale, Missouri. Joining me now is Chris Krehmeyer, CEO of Beyond Housing in St. Louis. Chris, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Marietta.
To start, let's paint a picture for those of us that may not be familiar with Pagedale. What did this community feel like, look like?
Pagedale is in the inner ring suburbs here in St. Louis County. So like lots of places across the country, inner ring suburbs have seen some of the same challenges that some of the urban core has faced over the last several decades. So it's been a bedroom community for decades, but has slowly seen deterioration and abandonment and decay and all the other things that, again, aren't unique to Pagedale, but all across the country. So it's a modest, little-sized community that's part of a larger geography that we work in. It has about 4,000 residents, it has about 1,500 homes, and a modest amount of commercial activity. And it's part of the Normandy Schools Collaborative, which is our school district, again, which is our larger targeted geography.
What's the demographics typically of that community?
So the demographics are 95% African American. Average income is somewhere around 45,000, which is about half the region's norm. Poverty rate is double the region's norm. We have all the challenges that come along with all of that.
So it was a prime community for you and your team to think about what could we do to strengthen this community?
Yeah, we really got started a while back because of the mayor that was there. If you can imagine, it's a small community, so it's not like the mayor of a large town or a large city. It's akin to a neighborhood association. You just happen to be elected and you happen to control the police force and a few other things. So this particular mayor, her name was Mary Carter, asked us to come and would we help in her community. So again, for us, it's not us deciding we're going to go there. It's the community asking us in, the community saying, hey, could you come help us with the challenges that are in front of us? So from that original invite that was simply, hey, could you build a few homes here? It really blossomed into something so much more than that.
One of the things that I've learned from you, Chris, over the years is about the structure of St. Louis. And when you describe it, it never ceases to amaze me because I think about St. Louis as being a large urban city, which it is, but it is broken up into these municipalities. Can you just paint that picture so we can get that context?
Yes. So a great phrase, and it's actually the title of a book too. It's called Fractured by Design. So that we have the city of St. Louis, which has about 300,000 residents, and then we have St. Louis County, which has about 1 million residents. Those 1 million residents are today in about 90 distinct municipalities, some as large as 50,000 and some as small as 500. So it runs the gamut. So much of this was simply a developer bought some farmland and said, I shall call this Pagedale, and then started building some housing, right? There was no particular strategic planning, urban planning at all. So we have the vestiges of that. And part of our work is to work with all the elected officials to help them bring out efficiencies and effectiveness about how they deliver services to their constituents and their taxpayers.
That's incredibly helpful context. All right, let's go back to Pagedale. Part of your work there really was spurred by a partnership that you launched between your organization, Beyond Housing, and Midwest Bank Center. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so like many things in communities like ours, the phrase that's pretty common vernacular is food desert. But the reality is communities like ours, it's a bank desert, it's a doctor desert, it's an entertainment desert, it's all kind of deserts. So in our larger geography, again, there were over 25 check cashing and payday lenders and only 2 regulated banking partners. And the city of Pagedale had none. Matter of fact, the city of Pagedale has never had a bank in its community. So we were building a senior building We had commercial space on the bottom floor, and the bank reached out to us for a variety of different reasons, including there were some regulatory challenges that they were facing. I want to be fully transparent. So the bank reached out to us and said, hey, can you help us a little bit? We have some challenges. And of course, I said, happy to help. And they first started talking about loan products and a few other smaller things. And I said, what about a bank branch? And of course, that's not exactly what they were thinking. So there was a kind of a gulp in the conversation.
Pause.
Pause. Chris, that's not exactly. So fast forward, we took the board on a tour, showed them the community. I introduced them to a number of our partners and friends. And to the bank's credit, they said, okay, let's give it a shot. So they opened up a full service branch in the bottom of our senior building. The story I love to tell about their evolution into kind of being in this community development space, because this is not a book of business that the bank had prior to a partnership with us. The staff created a home loan product with flexible underwriting, and they were just so thrilled that they launched the product, and they had the first 3 folks that they approved, and they came to the board meeting. They were so thrilled, and I said, well, how many people applied in this first kind of quick cycle? And they said 10 people applied, and they approved 3. And then I asked them, I said, how did you say no to the 7 people or the 70% of the loan applicants? And I said, I'm not questioning your underwriting. I'm not suggesting that there was a wrong decision, but be aware in this community, the communication is critically important. So if it was just a no, I promise you those 7 people are telling everybody they know, the bank told me no, don't go talk to them. Versus, I don't have a yes today, but boy, we're going to work with you and we're going to get you to a yes. And they had this kind of stunned look on their face. And I'm like, yay for the 3. But if we want to be successful, you at the bank want to be successful, we really have to build trusting relationships, right? Which is so much about our work in general, right? You have to build deep and trusting relationships. And we, again, try to tell the bank to do the same thing. Fast forward today, that particular branch is a $75 million branch. And there's no way in the bank's wildest dreams that the bank would be that successful. Part of what happened was we introduced them to a lot of our partners, including the school district, which we mentioned briefly earlier. The school district moved all their banking accounts to the bank. We have a number of the municipalities who've moved their bank accounts to the bank. So they have this core of institutional depositors, which is wonderful for a bank. And they've been building their individual customer base over time. This is not your suburbanite, affluent banking customer, right? You need a different suite of products, and you need to pay attention to what the needs are to try to make sure you're meeting their needs. The success of our branch moved the bank to open a second branch, literally attached to a church on Dr. King Avenue here in St. Louis. Now, I'm not an expert, but I'm doubting there aren't that many bank branches being opened up on Dr. King boulevards in this country.
Maybe there could be.
There could be, and there should be, right? So again, the methodology of the bank was find a trusted partner, in this case, the church, because the church is very active, actually does some community development work, and build on their relationships. So today, the bank is, I allege, and I think the numbers bear this out, they are the best and most prolific community development banking institution in the St. Louis region. There are 22 zip codes in the region that had the highest degree of poverty and the most people of color living there. And the bank made a $200 million commitment over a 5-year window, and they've exceeded those goals. And the bank has made money by doing so. It's the proverbial doing well by doing good.
By doing good work. Give us some parameters. When did you build the senior building, and when did the bank create their branch there? How many years has passed?
It's been about a dozen years now.
12 years.
Yeah. It was our first senior building, which was across the grocery store that we built, which is catty corner from the movie theater, the food hall, and the health facility that we built and own.
And was it the first building in Pagedale was the grocery store? Was that the first community obstacle that you were trying to resolve for Pagedale?
Yeah, it was the first significant non-housing related community development project that we did with the community.
So nonprofit developing a grocery store, a fully functional grocery store with produce and fresh meat. And you had never done anything like that before, but the community needed it.
The community said real clearly, we haven't had a grocery store in our community since the 1960s. So we hunted around and found a regional operator, a regional brand here was called Save-A-Lot, and worked with them. And we built the store to their specs, 17,000 square feet. Modest size compared to, again, the gigantic suburban stores, but 17,000 square feet was just right for our community. Save-A-Lot operated the store for 11 years, which was great. However, after the seventh year, which was like 2018 and 2019, they got bought by a hedge fund, which was the beginning of the end. Those first 7 years in the community, every year they had increased sales. They were nearing $5 million in annual sales. And those sales were half were SNAP benefits or food stamps, and half was, again, people paying market prices. So it was a great mix, and it was representative of this community. Sadly, the hedge fund ran the business de facto into the ground, and that particular brand is now a wholesaler and not much of a retailer. So it wasn't as if the community wasn't buying food. They were, and they were increasing their sales purchases year in and year out. It was what happened with the operator of the store.
There are stores in Pagedale now as a result?
No, the grocery stores don't come to communities like ours. It just doesn't happen, right? We've asked all the other chains here in the St. Louis region, and none of them either have interest or think they can make the economics work, which is frustrating. Right now, if we wanted to have someone to come open up our grocery store again, it would probably cost $600,000-$700,000 to stock the store. And then let's assume it's going to take 6 to 12 months to build up a customer base where you're actually generating profit. So let's say another $500,000. So we're well over $1 million in frontside capital before you start, again, generating that back. And if we don't have a big operator, which I don't think we're going to get, how do we support more modest operators? So we're talking to health foundations. We're talking to other philanthropic partners to say, work with us to help an operator come in on the front side, knock down that frontside capital expectation, and then maybe you give them a 7-year forgivable loan. You give them the $1 million and say, this store is open and fully operating in 7 years. We'll forgive that loan.
Try to incentivize a different kind of behavior in communities. Take us back to the beginning. You told us the mayor invited you in, but we've talked a lot on this podcast about community trust. And was that an issue here? How did your team go about establishing that?
We have two kind of underlying philosophies about how we come to the work. First is a process we call ask, align, and act. So we ask folks in community, like, tell us about the place you call home. What's working, what's not working, what are the problems, but more importantly, what are the solutions? Align all the resources, whether they're programmatic, financially, organizationally, and then lastly, get stuff done. We begin the trust building because we're not coming in saying, we know what's wrong and we're here to fix all your problems, right? We listen to their voice and we're driven by their voice. Secondarily, and I alluded to just a few minutes earlier, was how do you build deep and trusting relationships, right? And you have to just be in space, and the ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings are great, but you need to be in community in between all of those things. So we had built up a book of credibility by doing a lot of our housing work prior to this launching this much bigger effort. We did some after-school programming. We did a few other things that people knew about us, and we had developed that trust. So from that, we were able to continue the conversation and talk about grocery stores and movie theaters and other kinds of things that people need in their day-to-day lives that right now, that prior to us coming and doing all this work, they had to leave their community to take care of things that they needed.
So you're more than a dozen years into this investment in Pagedale, it sounds.
Yes.
And how have you seen the community and the people that live there change the way they live as a result of the investment that you've put in and your partners?
Look, I think there's a significant sense of pride, right? Their community has these things that they're proud to call their own. They have a food hall, they have a movie theater, they have a health facility, right? They have a lot of other things that we help bring. So they're thrilled with where they are at, but know there's much more to do. So we can share with them some quantifiable results, like in the last 10 years, crime has gone down 42%. In the last 10 years, the average sales price of homes by square foot has gone up 338%. So again, they're seeing both visually the changes, but we can give them some data about, wow, I didn't realize that's how much crime had gone down. I didn't realize that's how much sales prices went up.
What advice would you give your past self or a community that's facing similar challenges and wants to spur a similar kind of investment in their community? What advice would you give them?
The first thing is, I think you just have to have courage to try to do some things that may not have been done before, or maybe not exactly in your wheelhouse. Be thoughtful, be smart, do your due diligence, do your risk analysis. But at the end of the day, if we don't take risk in community, if we keep doing the same things, as the adage says, we're going to get the same results. And I don't think in most communities that most organizations like us serve that doing the same thing is acceptable.
If we were sitting here in 12 more years, what's the story that you would like to tell about Pagedale in another 10 to 12 years?
I think you use it in your opening, Marietta, this notion of transformation. We've created a place. We've created a place that people who live there love and are proud of. We've created a place that other people want to come to. We've created the economic sustainability over time where an organization like Beyond Housing doesn't have to be there for yet another 12 more years. What's the difference between a vicious cycle and a virtuous cycle? This virtuous cycle says we keep investing, the tax base goes up, more resources for public safety, more resources for public education, more resources for everything that we need. The housing stock gets better, it gets stronger. People feel better about their community. They act differently. More people move in. And then again, we have this, virtuous circle that builds on itself that happens in so many other successful communities and often does not happen in some of the communities that we serve.
And correct me if I'm wrong, your success in Pagedale has spurred a much larger set of initiatives to strengthen the entire region. Am I right here?
We've taken our work in Pagedale and expanded it to all the other communities in this larger geography that has about 40,000 people and is still bounded by the same school district. So we've built homes in other communities. We've actually rehabbed over 1,300 owner-occupied homes in our community. We have a forestry department. We have community health workers on staff. We have a comprehensive set of service delivery tools to come to community to say, we've heard you say there's a series of problems. We want to try to address all of them, from housing to economic development to education to health to jobs to our civic infrastructure.
Tell us about the work that's related to 24/1.
Yeah, so 24/1 is the kind of the moniker for this broader community, right? It's 22 separate municipalities. It used to be 24, and they had one common vision. So again, the idea here is because they were so small, but they were bounded by the same school district, could we bind them together with this commonality around the children? People sometimes ask us, because using a school district as a targeted geography for community development is a little unique, and our response is two things. One, that's where the children are, and two, that's how the tax base is set. So if we can serve our children well, support their needs and their well-being, and position them for lifelong success, that's a good thing for them, for their families, and for the neighborhoods that they live in. And then it's also good for the rest of our communities. We've been doing it for a number of years, and we meet with 12 to 18 mayors on a monthly basis to talk to them about all the different things that are happening in their communities and find ways for them to work together, to collaborate. We facilitated 2 mergers, the first 2 mergers ever in St. Louis County history. We have 3 police departments serving 15 communities, 3 court hubs serving 15 communities. We have 17 communities working on a transportation development district, which is a taxing district. So those are examples of folks being able to work together.
So it sounds like you're creating an atmosphere, an expectation perhaps, of building connective tissue across sectors to leverage strengths and resources across all of these municipalities. For the skeptics out there, they might say, Chris, what does a housing group really know about policing or about grocery stores?
So the answer is we don't know a doggone thing about grocery stores or policing, but the reality is that's what community says, boy, we'd like to see this get better. So we don't have to be subject matter experts on everything. What we need to do is bring in people who are and have them be part of this collective effort that we're trying to bring together. I was in a meeting yesterday with the police chief of one of the departments that serves 9 different communities here. And he started ticking off a list of things that we worked together on over the years. And quite frankly, I forgot like half of them. We got a Department of Justice grant where they were able to buy cameras. We worked on getting Ring cameras. We worked on getting police officers embedded in the school system, right? Again, we're not police experts, but we do know if a community is going to be successful, you have to have quality policing. So we're facilitators, we're conveners, we're a herder of cats, and we're doers. So we do play multiple roles. And what I tell people, Marietta, is look, you don't have to do everything we're doing, but you should get connected to something larger than your own mission delivery. Because again, if everything in community is interrelated and interconnected, our siloed solutions historically of housing here, health there, jobs here, education there, it's failed, right?
I think that's a great point. And I think we've been focusing on Pagedale, but there's a couple of other success stories that I want to talk about today. Let's talk about what's your work with the Normandy School Collaborative.
Yeah.
That's really interesting as well.
Sure. So,
Effort.
yes, a school district geography was what we selected to say this is going to be the place that we want to work. And that thinking was really this, that too often in public education, that so much of the conversation was inside the four walls of the schools, which is critically important. We need good curriculum, we need good teachers, administration, facilities, 100% agree with that. However, like in Normandy, where 100% of the kids receive free and reduced lunch, which means 100% of the kids live in poverty, what happens when the children go home? Are they cared for? What's the circumstance? And we know now with so much research coming out about trauma, about what happens in kids' lives, about the challenges before they even get to school in the morning and what happens when they leave. So for us, it's about how do we support families and children in a way that's not about the pedagogy of teaching and learning, but it's about how we get rid of the barriers that stop you from accessing what the school district has. So we have 15 staff people embedded in the school system. So we have offices in every school. We have food in every one of the offices. We have school supplies. We have school uniforms. We have crisis intervention funds for eviction and foreclosure and the car broke down right? So again, what we're trying to do is ensure that the things that happen outside of the school building won't negatively impact what the children do moving forward. And then in addition to that, we also have 2 additional staff at the high school. That we have a match savings program where if the children in their family save $1, we match it with $3 to pay for post-secondary education. This program over the last, I think it's 8 years now, we've sent 450 kids to college. We have 150 college graduates. The persistence rate, which is the fancy word for kids staying in school, is over 70%, which is just crazy good. And the byproduct, we hope, is that this school district turns itself around and becomes wildly successful. And right now, we're not there. Even after a decade plus of this kind of investment, we're just not there yet. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to get there. It's just been a tough road.
Give us some example of how an improvement to an educational infrastructure in a community can have a ripple effect in making that community stronger.
Sure. One, real estate values by and large are set by school district, right? When you go to buy a house, typically the agent's going to show you homes by school district. But here's the other reality. If your schools aren't good, however we want to define that, right? People start leaving. So the annual mobility rate, meaning the churn of kids from the first day of school to the last day of school in our school district for the last probably decade, and COVID has got some asterisks there, but it's been on an annual basis a 40% churn of children. So if folks would just think about that for a second, right? How do teachers teach and children learn? And the answer is they don't very well, not because they can't. It's because of the context in which a school and classroom environment happen. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring family stability to the school district, right? We're trying to get support mechanisms for the families. So again, their lives are more stable. So we stop a lot of the churn so kids can stay there, access what the school district has, so the school district can be successful, which will then be documented by, again, data.
At NeighborWorks, we're very grounded in listening to community needs and elevating the resident voice. Let me bring it back here for a minute. I think you've done an incredible job of tailoring programs and services at Beyond Housing to the evolving needs of the communities. Share an example of a time where community feedback directly influenced something your organization did, and it was somewhat unexpected.
I think I alluded to earlier is the movie theater. Because when we said, okay, what else can we do? This was after the grocery store, right? So
Which is back in Pagedale.
Back in Pagedale again, right? So there was the grocery store development, people all very excited. Wow, it's really fantastic. So we continue the conversation about what else can we do along this stretch of this boulevard where it's a tax increment financing redevelopment area. I don't want to get into too much jargon here, but it's a tool that typically for-profit developers use, but we're using it. We're probably one of the few not-for-profits who have what's called a TIF district. So we said, well, what else can we do here? And again, this conversation about entertainment came up and we said, well, what does that mean? So we just kept being in conversation and we did some data research that said our community on a per capita basis went and saw movies as much, if not more, than the entire region. They just had to leave our community to do it. So we're like, if you're willing to come here, instead, let's leave your money here, right? Let's create jobs here. Let's create economic activity here. And what I always tell people, and what I remember about the grand opening of the movie theater was, it was a James Bond movie. And what I remember was there's something different about, a grocery store is in your kind of hierarchy of needs, right? Your Maslowian hierarchy of needs. Seeing a James Bond movie really wasn't in hierarchy of needs, right? So people were just so excited. It was a different kind of excitement that their community gets to have a brand new movie theater, 4 screens, 375 seats, and it's theirs. It belongs to them. The cinema is called the 24-1 cinema, right? It's not called the Beyond Housing cinema. It's called the 24-1 cinema. It's your community cinema.
That's fantastic. I love that story. I wouldn't have thought about it. And I think that's...
And the plan wasn't for us to operate it. Like, we asked everybody in the region who does movie theaters, and they were like, "Oh, where's it going to be?" And we gave them the address. And good luck with that. So not only did we build it, but we actually operate it too, which is an interesting thing to run a movie theater. So I'll come back another time. We'll talk about the joys and excitement of running a movie theater.
Very entrepreneurial. It's a very entrepreneurial spirit. Looking ahead, what are some goals or projects that you have on your horizon that you want to share?
It's really about scale, Marietta. We're confident we're doing all the right stuff. We're building housing, we're rehabbing housing, we're serving kids, we're in education, we're doing health programs, we're working with the mayors, all the things we're doing. So for us, it's just, can we generate enough capital, both debt, equity, and philanthropy, to get to scale? We're building 36 new homes right now, our most recent low-income housing tax credit project. That's great, but it took us 3 years to get the allocation. I mentioned 15 staff people embedded in the schools, but there's over 3,000 kids in the schools, right? It's about scale. So we're in the middle of a $200 million campaign. It's called Once and For All. And as the name indicates, once and for all, can we really invest in the people and places that have been left behind for far too long? We believe we have a model that, if we can get to scale, is a model that's going to be successful, not only for our community, but that can be replicatable throughout St. Louis and, quite frankly, throughout the country.
You heard it here. There's an area prime for investment. So would you agree, Chris, that's one of the biggest opportunities that you see communities missing or falling short on, is that investing in all of those sectors simultaneously so that they all can move the needle together?
Yeah, 1,000%. We're in 4th or 5th decade of investing in, writ large, let's call it poverty alleviation. We can name it something else, but let's just give that as a name. And we failed. There's literally not one indicator from a community level standpoint that's any better today than it was 40 years ago. Now, are there great stories of individual success? Of course. Thousands and thousands of people have moved on to home ownership. But from a community level change standpoint, nothing's any better. So why on earth do we still keep doing the same stuff? So again, how do we have the courage to try some things that maybe we haven't tried before? They're not all going to work, but I promise you, grocery stores, movie theaters, they can work. Again, it takes creativity, takes a little risk taking. But again, we take risks in the private sector. Why on earth can't we take risks in the not-for-profit world?
And I'm hearing it's not a short-term investment. It's a long-term commitment with a variety of stakeholders all committed to the same goal.
Yeah. A great example would be I mentioned we're building 36 new homes as part of a low-income housing tax credit project. The permanent lender on that project is our largest hospital system, because we said, look, you believe in social determinants of health, right? You have a big balance sheet. Why don't you lend us some money at a discounted rate? So one, I get more points so I can get the doggone project approved from a scoring criteria, but you make the project more feasible. So again, it's just thinking and acting differently. And we're trying to show it's possible, right? The power of what's possible.
Power of what's possible. If we take care of communities, the communities will take care of us.
Amen.
I really appreciate your approach. I very much appreciate all the work you're doing at Beyond Housing and the positive impact you're having throughout the St. Louis region. Thank you so much, Chris, for you and your team and your board. And for our listeners, if you want to learn more about the initiatives at Beyond Housing or get involved in your local community, check out our show notes for links and resources. Join us next time for more stories of hope and transformation. And remember, every small action counts in building stronger communities.
This is the Community Effect.